We now return to, hopefully, the end of the game. Old Clint Van Zieks was too pure of heart. When he became a prosecutor and went in pursuit of the black roots of crime, he drove himself into a corner. He came to the uncomfortable realization: to fight the most fiendish of criminals requires one to become even more fiendish oneself. It's such a melodramatic thing that they have. The 19th century was a truly miraculous 100 years for Great Britain, and indeed the whole world. New industry, new technology, and with the birth of the Metropolitan Police Service, new law and order. These dazzling new developments meant even deeper shadows were cast on society. Water sullied by factories, air thick with noxious fumes and crime, growing daily to fill the darkness. Old Clint Van Zieks made it his mission to combat that darkness, but as time went on, it slowly ate at his soul, until eventually it was consumed. It's ironic, really, and somewhat surprising, that the truth has once again been unearthed by a Japanese. Once again? What do you mean? 10 years ago, your father, Genji Nasugi, turned up at my office one night. Professor. Yes, beyond all shadow of doubt. You must issue a warrant to search his home at once. Don't be absurd. Man comes from one of our country's most illustrious families. He's a paragon of justice here in the capital. Yes, that's the point. That's why none of you British can see it. He's using his noble status as a diversion whilst he commits these atrocious crimes behind the scenes. Do you have any evidence? Nothing definitive as yet, but he keeps an enormous savage hound on the estate. We need the full support of the judiciary for this. We're up against a member of the aristocracy. So a large family estate has a fierce guard dog. You should know that's commonplace here in Britain. Sorry, but I can't possibly put Scotland Yard onto this based on the tenuous accusation of a visiting student. So I turned down Asuki's plea, and as a result, he took it upon himself to visit the Van Zieks' mansion on his own. I can only imagine now what happened between the two men. Though we know the outcome, of course. Lord Clint Van Zieks perished. I don't believe this. So, in actual fact, Kazuma-sama's father did... He made the late Lord Van Zieks meet the same fate. Put a permanent end to the professor killings by taking the drastic measure of ending the perpetrator's life. As soon as I heard, I hurried to the mansion. When I arrived, it was easy to grasp what had happened. And? What about the will? Nasugi must have already taken it. Nothing of that nature was found at the scene. He had no idea of the existence of such a document at the time. I was the only person who knew of the identity of the professor, so I resolved to keep it a secret, and to guard the secret to the bitter end. So you're admitting to it? That you were behind it all? It was you, then, who pinned the crimes on my father. I did what needed to be done in order to protect the law and order of the British Empire, even if that meant employing an unforgivable ruse. And it was you who arranged this fabricated evidence. I ordered that detective to take care of it, whilst keeping the truth from him, naturally. Gregson. Obviously, he opposed me at first. Off your rocker. You can't do something like that. There's no question that it was Asogi who murdered Lord Van Zieks. The house staff have made statements that they saw the man running from the mansion that night. Yes, well, I've no doubt it was that Japanese fella, but we haven't got a shred of conclusive evidence against the man. And worse than that, he doesn't keep a dog, so we're short of a murder weapon to boot. And we're short on time, Gregson. We must put a stop to this man's rampage for the good of the country. So we'll use whatever means necessary. Do I make myself clear, detective? Blimey. So that night 10 years ago, when I was attacked by those thugs in the back streets, and Genshin's ring was taken, it was him, was it? That was Gregson and some hired help. Then the detective handed the stolen ring to Dr. Wilson, who feigned its discovery from the victim's stomach during that autopsy. And in light of that decisive evidence, Mr. Asogi was found guilty of the charges brought against him. However, behind the scenes, he had actually already struck a deal with his accusers, in which he agreed to silently accept the charges. But I just don't believe that part. As far as I knew the man, my father despised such underhanded dealings. It was extremely easy to make him comply. You see, he had one crippling weakness. What weakness? Isn't it obvious? You, Kazuma Asogi. Me. Perhaps you have no desire to return to your homeland, Asogi. What? Now I hear you have a 14-year-old son. Agree to cooperate and accept your guilt without contention, and you will see Japan and your son again. You scoundrel! Whether you choose wisely or not, it will be a closed trial by order of Her Majesty. So whatever rash claims you might make in court, we'll have no trouble in stifling them. There's only one outcome for you, Asogi. The gallows. Don't forget that I still have a weapon at my disposal. A document revealing a truth that I know you're desperate to keep hidden. Yes, it hadn't escaped my mind, which is the only reason I'm willing to bargain with you. I only want to protect this country's law and order, you understand. So, what's it to be, Asogi? Kazuma! Kazuma! He did it for me. And as I told him at the time, my motive was simply to protect Britain from the damage the truth would do. To protect this country's law and order, at any cost.
Objection!
I've never dared let myself even consider this possibility until now. But in the light of all this treachery, I have to ask. The mastermind behind the Reaper of the Bailey. Was it you, Lord Mel Strongheart? A rather brilliant idea, wouldn't you say, Lord Beric Van Zieks? That the spirit of your late brother, that paragon of justice, should return to reap justice for his sibling. Could there be a more appetizing tale for London's masses, I ask you? Brazen. I knew that you would play the part to perfection, but your role really wasn't that of some embodiment of death, no. You were London's guardian angel. Angel with bloody hands, I think not. Those who had cooperated with me already were only too happy to participate in my plan. Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson. My minions worked tirelessly to ensure that the finger of guilt could never come to rest on you. It's all thanks to them that you were exalted as the demigod the Reaper became. But Dr. Wilson left Britain 4 years ago when he was invited to work in Japan. That's right. So I had to employ the services of his young protege after that. Dr. Courtney Scythe. Dr. Scythe. So what with the execution of the Professor and the subsequent reign of the Reaper of the Bailey, I have successfully safeguarded law and order in our mighty capital for the past decade. That is everything. My lords, ladies, and gentlemen, I do hereby confess, it was I who sired the concept of the Reaper. However, let me say in my defense, it was all for the preservation of law and order across the entire empire. What Strongheart did it? An unforgivable collection of crimes, but still, those who died at the Reaper's hands were rotten to the core anyway. If it is all in aid of keeping London safe, there is no one left now who can reveal the precise truth of what happened 10 years ago. Therefore, this trial can go no further. Now, I would like to entreat all those present. Beyond these four walls, nobody need know the truth. Even Her Majesty must be protected from this. I trust you all appreciate the importance of my request. It is, of course, for the good of the country. Can he do this? Can the trial really end now?
Hold it!
I have one last question. For the accused, Lord Van Ziegs. What? Of course, I know that you're a highly accomplished prosecutor. So I find it hard to believe that you didn't have any doubts at all. That you never suspected your older brother. Yes, the same thought occurred to me. It was only once, but yes, I couldn't say that I never had my doubts. My brother's sense of justice was extremely strong, perhaps too strong, I observed. At that time, there were members of the aristocracy who were bleeding the country dry for their own gain. And since they were nobles, they were untouchable. For my brother, it was a source of great turmoil. And, coincidentally at the same time, the Professor began his terrifying reign. During the time of the Professor killings, my brother did not appear to be himself. And what made you suspect? That made you suspect, yes. Yeah, but it was only once, not more. Only once, really. Clint wasn't the culprit. That was my conclusion at the time, and I still believe that now. Do you have any evidence to support that idea? The third victim was the Lord Chief Justice at the time. It was he who had recognized my brother's potential and trained him as a prosecutor. No matter what the circumstances, it's unthinkable that my brother could have killed his friend and mentor. That will do. Neither Clint Van Ziegs nor Genshin Isoge still walk this earth. However much we debate this matter now, we cannot hope to reach a conclusion. But there are only two extant pieces of evidence from the time. The woebegone ring that acted as the incriminating evidence to condemn Genshin Isoge, and the 3-paged last will and testament penned in black ink and left behind by the man. The wretched truth of what happened is exactly as I have explained. Later today I will present myself at the Ministry of Justice for whatever sanction is deemed appropriate. That is all. Court is adjourned.
Objection!
Thank you, Kazuma. E. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have made this 11th hour discovery. What discovery? My lord, I'm afraid I must insist the trial continues. I beg your pardon. As the court has been reminded today already, we must stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth. And to that end, one particular statement made by somebody in this courtroom moments ago revealed a very subtle contradiction. What contradiction? But all I did was ask the accused one simple question. Well, it began with Lord Van Zeeks and his recollection about his brother, and Lord Strongheart didn't permit the defendant to speak at length. I merely pointed out that we can draw no further useful conclusions here, so where on earth is the contradiction? The woe-begone ring, and a 3-page last will and testament. One of them definitely said something contradictory. It's time to identify who. It was Lord Strongheart, I'm sure of it. Something he said was slightly off. Come on, Ryunosuke. Think back over his words. Find the problem. Neither Clint Van Zeeks nor Genshi Nasogi still walk this earth. However much we debate this matter now, we cannot hope to reach a conclusion. There were only 2 pieces of evidence at the time. The ring and the 3-paged last will and testament. Lord Strongheart, would you care to explain? Explain what, counsel? Among the statements you made just a few moments ago, something you said was inconsistent with a certain piece of evidence we have. Inconsistent. And whilst an inconsistency remains, the defense has a right to pursue an explanation. Ryunosuke, what? Let me warn you about the statements you are making, counsel. They may very well prove fatal. You claim my words contained a contradiction. With which piece of evidence, I ask you?
Take that!
This here is the will left behind by Mr. Asogi. The 2-paged will. What? Yet moments ago, your precise words were the 3-paged last will and testament. Could it be that originally there was a 3rd page? For a moment I thought perhaps you'd identified something worthwhile. But it's a mere trifle, I say. A trifle. Governor Caden. What can I do for you, sir? You were present when the Japanese man penned his last will and testament. Aye, I was there for sure. I remember the black, worm-like scrolls to this day. And I'm quite certain, my lord, that there was a 3rd page at the time. What? Only the first 2 pages were the actual will, though. If I mind correctly, the 3rd was a message to his lad back in Japan. For legal purposes, we required only his will. And we wouldn't have wanted any uncomfortable words about Britain to get back to Japan, eh? So it was decided that the 3rd page oughtn't be sent.
Objection!
How dare you make that decision? I had a right to know what it said, to hear my father's final words to me. The courtroom is no place for sentimentality, counsel. As it happens, I have the 3rd page of the document with me here now. My father's message. It will be given to you at the end of these proceedings. It'll be too late once the trial's over. We need to know what it says now. Even the slightest thing may give us a vital clue. My lord, the defense calls for Genshi Nasogi's last words to his son to be read aloud before the court now. Your request is denied. The inevitably maudlin words can be of no consequence now. The prosecution agrees. The court should know the content of that message. Every possible piece of evidence must be thoroughly examined. Very well then, Governor Caden. We'll read the 3rd page of the document for all present to hear. Yes, sir. Only I should point out, my lord, that I can actually read worm language. This beautiful handwriting. Shame on you, Barry. Who is it? It's you. If I could be of assistance here, I would be happy to translate the words into English for the court. Father. You're still here, are you, Dr. Mikotoba? Naturally, I consider myself a member of the judiciary, albeit a lowly one. But perhaps I should quietly withdraw after I've translated Genshin's message. Your cooperation is much appreciated. Kazuma, the truth is shrouded in darkness. A darkness only our clan's great sword can pierce. Mighty Karuma, twist thy head and watch them fall, all thy mortal foes. That's the end of the message, it would seem. A haiku poem? Twist thy head. Father. What is Karuma? The name of the Asogi clan's famous sword. A razor-sharp blade known to all, passed down for generations. It embodies the Japanese spirit. It's not known to me. It's the katana sword that was submitted as evidence earlier in these proceedings. The one worn by the prosecution counsel when he confronted Inspector Gregson. Details of the Asogi papers have been updated in the court record. All these procrastinations are beginning to try my patience. Adjournment of this court is long overdue. Well, now, hold on a tick. Mighty Karuma, twist thy head and watch them fall. All thy mortal foes. That's the proper way to use the sword, is it? Maybe I should try it. It hurts my neck, that's the trouble. And Mr. Naruhodo, if I might make a suggestion, I think perhaps it doesn't mean your head. Oh. I once studied the history and development of the katana some time ago. And as I'm sure you're probably aware, the sword's head is the part at the very end of the hilt. It's written as head in Japanese, but it's pronounced as kashira, I believe. Kashira. So Mr. Asogi's words really meant twist the butt of the hilt. You don't think... Ah, look what's inside it. Is that a tightly wound sheet of parchment? Scarlet ink. It's written in scarlet ink. I pen this, my last will and testament, in the final moments before my inevitable and willing death. This is it, isn't it? Mr. Naruhodo, look at the signature at the end. Clint Van Zieks. And the date, 10 years ago, on that fateful night. So for 10 years, it's been silently concealed inside Karuma and nobody knew. The last will and testament of Lord Clint Van Zieks. Wait. Oh my goodness. Look at this. This is unbelievable. What is it? It's been entered in the court record. So we have to examine it separately now? We can't. We can't. A trump card. Why can't I? As the presiding judge, I have been as accommodating as possible of the will of the courtroom. However, despite all that, no new information has come to light. In pursuit of justice, Lord Clint Van Zieks has tragically lost all sense of morality. When he murdered his former mentor, clearly he was already devoid of his normal faculties. How dare you? I refuse to believe that of my brother. Too much time has passed. We cannot ever hope to know more than we do now. Especially since the alleged will that he penned in his final moments appears to have been lost forever. Objection! Lord Strongheart, you appear to be in something of a hurry to wrap things up. I wonder why. We've heard you state time and again during these proceedings that everything you did was in the interests of protecting British law and order. And I stand by that. Without the Reaper, we could never have achieved the reduction in crime the capital has seen.
Protection.
What about Inspector Gregson, then? And Dr. Wilson? They were no criminals. You used them to achieve your ends, and then you had them killed. However you dress it up, there was nothing fair or just about that. It's Strongheart. What exactly is it that you're hiding? Talk to me, Kotaba. Were you not to quietly withdraw after the translation of your former associate's will? In this courtroom, no argument carries weight unless it is supported by evidence. And it would seem that the defense has no more evidence to present. That's not true. When do I get a chance to... In which case, I hereby order all discourse from these proceedings to be struck from the record. This is my last chance. Mr. Naruhodo, I have to present some decisive evidence now or it's all over. But can I? Well, yeah. Wait, my lord. As it happens, the defense does have evidence to present. Don't be absurd. There is nothing of relevance remaining from the time.
Objection.
It's high time that you realize something, my lord. This gentleman has an uncanny habit of producing evidence at the final hour that had escaped everyone else's attention. Nonsense. What is it, Ryunosuke? What do you have? I dare say, the final, decisive piece of evidence that will reveal the whole truth about this rotten tale. Now, how can you... decisive? Well, it would appear there's no escaping it now, my lord. Let it be so, then. Present whatever you think you have that can settle this decade-old enigma, if you're capable. What exactly is this evidence the defense claims to be so decisive?
Take that!
There is a single piece of evidence that can clarify what really happened 10 years ago. The last will and testament of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. A wonderfully astute observation, I'm sure. But in case it had escaped your notice, that document was lost long ago. That's right, it was. Only... I have it right here. Discovered just moments ago. Impossible. That can't be. Everything that's happened comes back to this will. This document is the key that will unlock the entire mystery. My brother's last will and testament. Where did you find that? It was rolled up inside this. Inside Kuruma? The ultimate weapon Genshin Asogi obtained has lain undisturbed in the hilt of this sword all these years, just waiting for the right time to emerge and reveal the truth. The signature and seal certainly look official. My God, it's true. It's my brother's handwriting. There can be no mistake. I forbid the contents of that document to be read out. You hear me? I strictly forbid it. I don't believe you can. You can't do that, my lord. This document could explain everything. That document could literally destroy the meaning of justice in this country. I demand that you hand it to me, at once. Why? What are you trying to hide? Could it be that you already know what's written on this page? What are you implying? Court is adjourned with immediate effect. Clear the courtroom.
Objection.
Do that, my lord, and you'll suffer a fatal blow as Lord Chief Justice. I beg your pardon. forcibly ending a trial without good reason, and not any trial, a closed trial by order of Her Majesty the Queen. To defy the monarch's will is treason. Lord Clint Van Zieks really did pin a whale that day. It's exactly as the young Japanese man said. Read it out now. We have a right to hear what's in that will. A right and a duty. Oh well, my lord. It would rather appear that as though these proceedings aren't going to go quite as you'd hoped. Oof, fools. Go ahead, Ryunosuke, read it. Prosecution gives its full support. Very well, then. Oh, for God's sake. No. I pen this, my last will and testament, in the final moments before my inevitable and willing death. The hour is 11 p.m., and I sit at my writing desk in my office. My good friend Asogi stands at my shoulder. He has expressed his intent to invoke the dying ritual of the duel, that I may depart this world with honor. An honor of which I am utterly undeserving. The Japanese are a truly merciful people. The rape of Nanking, I'm just saying. I, Clint Van Zieks, Lord of the Manor of the Van Zieks estate, hereby confess to the following. I am the killer who has come to be known in society as the Professor, guilty of 4 counts of murder. I will not here discourse the corruption rife among the aristocracy, which is to me, as one of them, so apparent. However, 6 months ago, I took the life of a member of the House of Lords at the heart of the depravity. A demon who habitually sacrificed the common man to further his own interests, abusing his position of power. The law is impotent against such vile avarice. Only a fellow demon can rid society of this menace. That demon was my quarry, upon whom I willingly set my great hound. But though I am a hunter of some experience, I am a poor felon, it seems. My guilt was at once recognized by another, and I became subject to his extortion. He held over me the threat of exposing my wicked crime to my beloved wife and brother. Under that threat, I have done this man's bidding for months now, killing those he demanded I kill, as I watched my former mentor perish before my eyes at the jaws of the hound I commanded. I realized that I had lost the last shred of decency within me, and sunk to the level of a wild beast. There is no path back to the light. Be it I or my dear friend Asogi who dies this night, I am eternally damned. To my extortioner, male Strongheart, may you feel the jaws of the beast at your throat every time you swallow. Why wasn't that in a literal sense? I mean, surely he had opportunity to meet with him and have him killed. So now we know. Yes, Clint Van Zieks was a murderer, but somebody was directing him and naming his victims. His extortioner, Lord Male Strongheart. It was you. Lord Strongheart, a moment ago you claimed that what the court had just heard could destroy justice in this country. But you weren't trying to protect justice at all. All you were trying to do was conceal the secret of your true nature and the countless lives you've sacrificed up till now. It just didn't make sense to me that the third victim, the former Lord Chief Justice, was my brother's benefactor and a man of lofty principles. As I said, Clint had no possible reason to kill the man. But you did, didn't you, Lord Strongheart? To eliminate the man who stood between you and the office you'd set your sights on. So you used your own hunting dog, Lord Clint Van Zieks, to take him down. It had to be done. London's unsavory shadows are deep, and the arm of the law fails to reach their depths. Crime must be cut off at the roots, but the Lord Chief Justice at the time couldn't see that. He was weak. Lofty principles, you say. Tantamount to cowardice, if you ask me. Which is why I took his place, in order to fight the crime he was allowing to spread like wildfire. by murdering the man. The Reaper, Professor, name makes no difference. As I've explained countless times already, it was all done for the furtherance of law and order in London. Are you going to legitimize the murder of my father now, too? Again, Shinosuke. No, that was unfortunate. I had fully intended to send him back to Japan as we'd agreed. I don't believe you. It was you, wasn't it? You killed him. No, it wasn't me who took your father's life. Then who? On the night following his mock execution, I went to Lowgate Cemetery at 3 in the morning with Jigoku. Judge Jigoku. There had to be a collaborator on the Japanese side to manage Yosuke's treatment after his repatriation. Jigoku had fierce ambition. It made him easy to manipulate. 10 years ago, after he'd stood trial for the destruction of the witness stand, I had words with him. When I told him the position of Minister of Foreign Affairs could be his, he couldn't agree fast enough. Seishiro, you fool. As you know, Asogi escaped the prison in a closed casket, and was subsequently interred. We intended to dig him out of his grave before he ran out of air. But sadly, all did not go to plan. There was an unexpected visitor to the cemetery with his own ideas about digging up graves. A man who witnessed what nobody was supposed to see. Enoch Draper. Of course, I knew grave robbers frequented London cemeteries, but that grave on that particular night. Last, if people find out the convict wasn't really executed, the scandal will rock the very foundations of the Empire. Then what do we do? Shoot him, Mr. Jigoku. Shoot Asogi at once. Can't live now. This has happened. He has to go. Talking about, we had an agreement. You promised him he could return to Japan. Everything has changed now. If the truth got out because of this, both of us would be finished forever. Come on, Jigoku, do it. Pull the trigger. Shoot him! Jigoku shot Asogi from the shadows. The grave robber was so close the blood sprayed over his coat. He fled as fast as his legs would carry him. Then Jigoku and I put Asogi's body back in the grave from which he'd just emerged. When I later learned the waxwork modeler's presence at the scene as well, I made her swear to 2 things. Never to remove the professor's mask, never to speak of the events of that night. And with that, the secret was buried, along with Asogi's corpse. So, now you know what really happened in Lowgate Cemetery that night. It was Jigoku, your Japanese acquaintance, who killed Asogi in the end, you see. He claimed to be the man's friend, but when push came to shove, he pulled the trigger. Just before Mr. Jigoku left the courtroom earlier, he said that the assassin exchange proposal was a demand from his British counterpart, not a request. So you coerced him too, using what happened in the graveyard? By that time, Jigoku was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, negotiating international treaties with Britain. You can imagine what would have happened if it came to light he'd murdered a compatriot 10 years earlier. He would have lost everything. I merely reminded him of that. How do you sleep at night? These past 10 years, I've fought tirelessly with the darker recesses of London's criminal underworld. I've used whatever means necessary to ensure that justice prevails and law and order reign supreme. I couldn't be further from the truth. The fact is, you haven't fought crime at all. Dare you? I saved Clint Van Zeeks from dishonor in his death.
Objection!
Once behind the scenes, you systematically buried anyone who stood in your way. And then, you made my father take the blame. It was unavoidable. It was the only way to protect our justice system and public order. Let's not forget the others you had killed as well, setting the defendant up as the Reaper to cover up the truth behind the murders of countless more. That's enough. Do you have any idea of the conniving that led to the acquittals of those wretched criminals? We have to fight fire with fire. Our courts can't function without a Reaper. Can't you see all I've done for this country? This has all been my struggle. You've done nothing. It's Lord Van Zeeks here who worked tirelessly and justly in court whilst enduring the disgrace of the Reaper name. And Inspector Gregson, fraught with anguish for having sullied his hands through a desire to do the right thing. Not to mention Genshin Asogi, who risked his life going in pursuit of the truth you tried to hide. Now, the darker recesses of London's underworld were largely filled by you. Little, when will you get it through your thick skulls? That it was all for Queen and country? I'm tiring of that excuse. You've consistently twisted the truth for bargaining power to make others do your bidding, nothing more. People who willingly twist the truth and coerce others have no right to call themselves part of the judiciary. My mouth is going. I strongly suggest you don't ever talk of justice again. Well. Dear me, my good fellows, dear me. A well-deserved round of applause, I think, for a quite marvelous performance. What are you talking about? Those delightfully grave expressions, that beautifully pronounced Queen's English. Really, our friends from the Far East are quite the picture of industriousness. Fraud, keep your mockery. Please, don't misunderstand. It really is exactly as you've both said. What are you trying to say? I've occupied the darker recesses of London's underworld, and how do you put it? Done nothing. I confess it's a little embarrassing to have it pointed out quite so starkly, but yes, I really have done nothing. Which means I can be indicted for nothing. No? Nani? It's true. Personally, I have committed no crime. I've merely been surrounded by fools, who've acted very rashly indeed. Does extortion not count? Can't get away with that. You've consistently preyed on people's weaknesses. What? Threatened them? Are you sure it wasn't just bargaining? I would like to address all the good lords, ladies, and gentlemen of the judiciary here present. You all know of these darker recesses in our great capital, and deep down I believe you also know. To fight those who dwell there requires at least some of us to occupy the darkness ourselves. So let me appeal to your good sense now. Consider the situation with me. This catalogue of horrifying revelations were to become common knowledge among the 6 million inhabitants of London, what might happen? To learn that the infamous murderer, royals and nobles, was a respected member of the aristocracy himself. That evidence was fabricated in the scapegoat trial amid secret negotiations with prosecutors to effect a jailbreak. That the Reaper of the Bailey was an organized group of assassins managed by a Scotland Yard inspector. And finally, that it was all masterminded by the Lord Chief Justice himself. The general public of Britain knew the truth. All faith in the police and the prosecutor's office would be completely lost, without doubt. Public order in the capital would completely break down, be cast back to the lawless days of the last century. Precisely. As it was 100 years ago, when 1 in 10 of the population were criminals. Think what we've accomplished since then: a public policing force, a comprehensive set of laws. If we want to continue to protect this new era of law and order, I say again, must at times occupy the darkness ourselves. We have successfully identified and apprehended the man responsible for taking Inspector Gregson's life. That is all that was expected of this trial. All other matters that have been discussed will be eliminated from the minutes of these proceedings, in the interests of preserving law and order, and to protect Her Majesty the Queen, of course. Well, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, what say you?
He has a point. The things Lord Strongheart has done are quite unforgivable. But on the other hand, it's our duty to maintain law and order in the capital. You can't deny that the threat of the Reaper over the years has done wonders for the crime rate. And by fair means or foul, that's all thanks to Lord Strongheart.
Are you hearing this? This is the will of the British judiciary. For your rousing response, friends, I express my heartfelt gratitude. Therefore, in accordance with the overwhelming wishes of the court, the records shall be erased. We have to respect the man's ability to turn a situation into his favor. Strongheart really is a master of manipulation. We've conclusively proven his guilt, yet still he manages to evade justice. I just don't know what we can do. Ryunosuke, it looks like the trial's really going to come to an end now. I'm almost out of options, I think. There's really only one path left open to me. Well, I mean, it would be, I guess, use evidence. Because that's the only way we're going to be able to use our little mouse friend, yeah? Rabbit friend. Yes, as I know only too well, the only thing that carries any weight in court is hard evidence.
But, Mr. Naruhodo, what evidence is there to use at this stage in the trial?
I have an idea. I don't know whether anything will come of it, but if there was ever a time for using this particular item we have among the evidence, it's now.
Take that!
Oh my, yes, Mr. Sholmes asked if you had that with you earlier.
We've exposed all of Lord Strongheart's wrongdoing now. I have no doubt that Mr. Sholmes had already deduced exactly how the truth would unfurl. So I think it might be time for the great detective to take center stage, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. Let's take the hair by the ears then, and heave.
Alright, here goes.
Heave! Ow, 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 ow. My dear fellows, must I remind you every time? A gentle tug will suffice.
Mr. Sholmes, looking quite the wrong direction, Mr. Naruhodo, because I'm over here.
Mr. Naruhodo, he's...
It's Mr. Sholmes.
As a hologram.
I wasn't expecting you back, Sholmes. Delighted to be here again, Lord Strongheart. What is the meaning of this? Bailiff, seize him. Put that man in irons. This is a closed court. You've been warned once already, man.
What the? We can't get hold of him, my lord. We just go right through him.
Okay. I'm afraid your efforts are wasted. The great detective you see before you is composed entirely of light and shadow, an image, if you will. Mr. Naruhodo, I must congratulate you on your fine deductions. Mr. Sholmes, what on earth is... Are you familiar, I wonder, with the invention known as the telephone? Well, yes, I hear that some public telephones have been installed recently in Tokyo. The sound of the speaker's voice is converted to an electrical signal and transmitted instantly to another place. Right. Sounds are transmitted, so could not images keep them company, I mused. Iris and I did some modest experimentation to develop such a device specifically for this very day. Modest experimentation, Mr. Sholmes? What a modest description. And somewhat incidentally, I thought we might just as well transmit an entire scene. Somewhat incidentally, Mr. Sholmes? Now you're just being immodest. Do you mean to say you're not actually here, Sholmes? I knew my trusty partner would have no trouble grasping the concept. Except he's grasping the stand to steady himself after your shock arrival. Oh, Father, I would have hoped he might have been forewarned, being the great detective's great partner. Leave my courtroom at once. Get out, or I swear to you. Dear me. You, on the other hand, Lord Strongheart, appear to have a very poor grasp of the situation. Allow me to reiterate, I am not here, which would, I hope, lead naturally to one asking. Where exactly are you? The very question I was awaiting. I am at present enjoying the air in a rather splendid garden. A garden. Not just any garden, you understand. A garden at Buckingham Palace. What? You can't be Buckingham Palace. What's Buckingham Palace, Mr. Sato? I've never heard of it. You ever read the news, Mr. Naruhodo? Mr. Sholmes. Is Iris with you there? Ah, well, now. Iris is currently enjoying some tea. With Her Majesty. Her Majesty? Not just any Her Majesty, you understand. Her Majesty, the Queen of the British Empire.
What? Nani?
What on earth is all this about? Buckingham Palace is Her Majesty the Queen's residence in London, Mr. Naruhodo.
Order in the court. I demand immediate silence.
Her Majesty the Queen, you can't be. No. This is some sort of unforgivably distasteful trickery by a third-rate detective, that's all. Unforgivably distasteful trickery. An apt description. A closed court session attended by elite members of the judiciary is a rare event. I presumed that Her Majesty would be more than a little curious about the proceedings. So I decided to show her everything, from start to finish. You showed her? Indeed. By dint of the Herlock Sholmes remote cinematograph. Cinematograph, you meddling. This is some kind of nightmare. Just as I appear to be standing before you, regaling you with talk of my latest invention. No doubt you've inferred that the reverse is also true. Don't mean... Her Majesty is seen and heard every moment of the proceedings. I assume there would be no objection. After all, every trial in this country is conducted under the auspices of Her Majesty, as you know. I confess I am quite impatient to hear Her Majesty's opinion about the unforgivably distasteful trickery in which you've been engaged over the past 10 years. No, I was merely... I'm sorry to keep you all waiting. Vicky and I had so much fun, so much to talk about. Iris, there you are. In fact, I have a little message here from Her Majesty. A message? Well then, if everyone is sitting comfortably, forthwith, and with immediate effect, all authority previously afforded to male Strongheart is hereby revoked forevermore. Furthermore, he will be prosecuted for crimes against his country in a public trial by jury in the coming days. So it seems that Her Majesty doesn't believe we need to fight fire with fire. Justice in this country needn't be administered from the shadows at all. Male Strongheart, the darkness you fostered to conceal your despicable actions these last 10 years is a thing of the past now. After today, your brand of law and order has no future, because no longer are you the Lord Chief Justice. In the eyes of the law and Her Majesty the Queen, you are nothing but a criminal. Adjourned, adjourned, adjourned. Court is adjourned. Seems like a rather dangerous situation. Old Clint Van Zeeks left a will in which he confessed to everything. When those words came out of Asogi's mouth, it deranged me completely. I knew I must do anything and everything in my power to contain the situation. I couldn't find the damned document. Searched his cell, but it wasn't there. Which precipitated the jailbreak plot, I presume. What do you mean? The need to obtain that will was all-consuming. I was sure that if I facilitated Asogi's escape, he would emerge with the will somewhere on his person. But despite searching his limp body in the cemetery that night, it still eluded me. Never even crossed my mind that it was concealed in the sword's hilt. What pains me now is that my brother left his world without a word to me. Sorry, Lord Van Zeeks. In point of fact, I think perhaps that isn't the case. Sorry. How can that be? There is more to his last will and testament. What? As I confront the prospect of my demise, I feel bitter regret for my younger brother. Eric, you have always looked up to me, and now follow in my footsteps to become a prosecutor. It is my fervent wish that you... Jesus. It is my fervent wish that my unspeakable deed should not hinder your advancement. I ask not for understanding, for none could understand my depravity. I ask only for forgiveness. Sogi is a fine detective, and a hunter worthy of respect. He has agreed to honor my final two wishes. First is that this document survives. Second, I cannot commit to paper. I have confessed my sins to my wife. May she find resolution in my death. With my eternal gratitude to my Japanese friend, I rest my quill. Clint Van Zeeks. Are we done yet? For crying out loud. Neil Strongheart, you colluded with Seishiro Jigoku in a criminal plot so immense it spanned the oceans, and you cold-heartedly murdered all those who knew the truth about what happened 10 years ago. Well, why did you set about that now, a whole decade later? To ascend to the very peak. These last 10 years made me realize being the Lord Chief Justice wasn't enough. Short of becoming Her Majesty's Attorney General, I could have no real power to effect the changes needed in this country. For that promotion, I needed to ensure no remnants of the past remained. Could you? I like everything to run smoothly, in the exact manner that I prescribe, like a well-oiled machine. And I was just a step away. And for your ambition to succeed. Did you even bother to count the number of brilliant people you had killed? Ah, Mr. Reaper, you're not forgetting something. Such as, you've very much adopted your usual prosecutor-like demeanor in the proceedings now. The reality of the situation is that you are the defendant in this trial. However, the presiding judge would appear to have fallen from the bench, as it were. I suggest, therefore, that we entrust the final adjudication to an old friend. My lord.
As a member of the judiciary, I have been following the proceedings from the gallery. And I must say, I shan't ever forget the extraordinary battle between good and evil that I witnessed here today. Darkness that has blighted justice in our land these past 10 years has at last been dispelled, thanks in no small part to the efforts of a bright young star from the east. Defense Counsel Naruhodo.
Yes, my lord.
On behalf of everyone here present in the Old Bailey, I give you my heartfelt thanks.
You're too kind, my lord. First time I faced you in court, just under a year ago now, I had the faintest of intimations that if British justice, so warped and twisted over this long history, was finally to know change, this might just be the man to do it. What? But at the time, I wouldn't allow myself to acknowledge the possibility. I couldn't overcome my hatred of the Japanese after the circumstances of my brother's death. Mr. Naruhodo, allow me to apologize for countless discourtesies on my part. You are a lawyer of boundless talent.
Lord Van Zeeks?
When I first arrived in Great Britain, I was literally a nobody. Certainly not a lawyer. The truth is, my fortunes have entirely been made by the miraculous people I've met. My best friend, Kazuma Sogi, who led me here to Britain in the first place. My loyal and ever-patient judicial assistant, Mr. Sato, who helped me study to become a lawyer. Brilliant Lord Van Zeeks, who never failed to challenge his Nipponese rival. And not to mention, the exceptional master of logic and reasoning, who showed me the true art of deduction, Mr. Sholmes. Saving the best for last, Mr. Naruhodo. What a relief. I'm well aware that without all these people's help and support, I wouldn't be where I am today. The truth is a guiding light that always leads to happiness. I've lived by that principle for a long time now, but actually, it's not true. The truth can also cause great pain, sometimes even leave people on the brink of despair. And for that reason, there are those who feel the need to hide the truth, who do it instinctively even. We call them liars. But as soon as we allow our eyes to settle on something other than the truth, the darkness takes hold. And from there, it grows, until eventually it makes us blind to the guiding light of the truth altogether. So that's why it's my belief that we must all resolve never to avert our eyes from what is just and true. So that we can continue to walk the straight and narrow path ahead. I must excuse myself now. But before I go, Mr. Naruhodo, let me compliment you on your grand opus. What? Without your beautifully composed case against Lord Strongheart, Her Majesty would have been unable to act. Thanks to you and your fellows, the haunting undertones corrupting Britain's justice system have been silenced. Thank you very much. So, until our paths cross again somewhere.
Well then, it would appear that this long trial has finally come to an end.
My apologies for any anxiety caused, my lord.
I'm quite sure we shall meet again here in the courtroom before long, Prosecutor Barak Van Zeeks. In conclusion of these proceedings, I hereby declare the defendant, Barak Van Zeeks, not guilty. That is all. Court is adjourned.
It really is all over. But did I sacrifice too much? Mr. Naruhodo.
I really must congratulate you. It was a truly, truly splendid performance. Honestly, I couldn't be happier for you. Oh, thank you very much. But I really couldn't have done it without you at my side through it all, Mrs. Hato. Your kind words mean so much to me. It really was a very splendid show, that, Naruhodo. I'd have thought you'd be smiling from ear to ear, but you look rather glum. Well, of course I'm delighted about the verdict, but in exposing the truth, I'm afraid I've caused my client a great deal of pain. I'm really not sure that's what a lawyer ought to be doing. Oh well, in that case, I'm quite sure that when you see Lord Van Zieks' smiling face, everything will seem much better. Indeed. Mr. Sato. Everything seems worse. He has a face like thunder. Oh dear, I really shouldn't have presumed. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? Almost a year it's been now, since I first encountered you here in this very courthouse. For you to have risen to the level of excellence you demonstrated today. Well, it's quite remarkable. But I exposed the most unpalatable truth you could ever have imagined in court today. I feel as though I've robbed you of something you held so dear. What was it he said? To fight those who dwell in the darkness requires at least some of us to occupy the darkness ourselves. But that was just the feeble excuse of a coward. Only those with a steadfast eye for the truth have what it takes to fight the dark forces of crime. You made fine work of establishing that fact in court today. Well, thank you. What magnanimous words. I'm quite sure that Kazuma-sama would have a smile on his face at this very moment if he were here. Kazuma. Susato. There's another face like thunder here. Oh my, and he really was here. Lord Van Zieks. Allow me to congratulate you on your acquittal. Congratulate me, or curse me. You failed to bring down the Reaper. I owe you an apology. No, it is I who should apologize. Your father, Genshin. If I had been stronger, then perhaps I made an unforgivable error of judgment. I can offer no excuse. And I can offer no forgiveness. That said, I suppose you fought for justice and the truth. For that, at least, I can't withhold respect. Your words mean more to me than you could know. I will hold them dear. Kazuma-sama. I must say, there's one thing that's still bothering me. It's that the will that Lord Clint Van Zieks wrote before his duel with my father. Asogi is a fine detective and a hunter worthy of respect. He has agreed to honor my final 2 wishes. The first is that this document survives. The second, I cannot commit to paper. I have confessed my sins to my wife. May she find resolution in my death. With my eternal gratitude to my Japanese friend, I rest my quill. Clint Van Zieks. What can the second of his final wishes have been? That your father agreed to honor, you mean? I think perhaps I might be able to shed some light on that. What? Father? It was 10 years ago, as you know, the day before the execution was scheduled. I went to the prison to say my farewells to Genshin. Why aren't you putting up more of a fight, Genshin? If you'd only agreed to it, Seishiro and I would gladly petition the government. You've been through this already. You don't need to worry about me. Anyway, Eugene, I have a favor to ask of you.
Something of great importance. You're one of my greatest friends, Genshin. Whatever it is, consider it done. I'm going to tell you an address. I need you to go there at once. In secret and telling no one. You should find a lady of the gentry in hiding there. A lady of the gentry. She's not in a good way, and she's with child. The birth is imminent. As a medical man, I'd like you to attend to her. Please, you're her only hope. Are you telling me that Iris... By any chance, is the child yours, Genshin? Don't be daft. It's a favor that was asked of me by a man I knew, as his dying wish. My goodness. I swore to the man that I would help. That I would do whatever I could for his wife and his unborn child. But if something should happen to me, I need to ask you that same favor. You're the only person I know that I can rely on. What did you say? If something should happen to you. Tomorrow night, you're going to be... You never know, though, do you? What life will bring. Alright then. Tell me the address. I'll head there at once, with Seishiro and... No, not with him. Pardon. This is a favor I'm asking of you, and only you, Eugene. Right, I see. Very well then. That very night I caught a train from Paddington to Dartmoor in Devon. I found the old house, in the middle of nowhere it was. An old hunting hound lay asleep in the grounds. The poor woman was on the floor at the back of a darkened room. She was in mortal danger. I broke her waters to precipitate the labor before she weakened further, but it was a torturous birth. I did everything humanly possible for her and her child. And in the end, I was lucky enough to welcome a new life into the world. But tragically, my efforts to save the mother's life were in vain. I held the healthy newborn girl in my arms and wept for longer than I care to remember. Eventually, in something of a daze, I looked around the room. There was precious little in it, but an old travel trunk caught my eye. It had clearly been well looked after over the years, made of top-quality leather with fine stitching. But it was when I saw the emblem on the side of it that everything dropped into place. B for Baskerville. Baskerville? You mean the woman was the wife of Lord Clint Van Zeeks? That's right. The newborn was his daughter. But that makes no sense. Why on earth wouldn't Clint have entrusted the child to my care in that case? I was completely unaware that he even had a daughter. I suppose he didn't really have any choice. But, well, your brother said that he'd confessed everything to his wife, so she must have been beside herself with worry for her child. If the true identity of the professor were ever to be made public, the girl would be forever branded as the daughter of the infamous mass murderer. So the only solution is to distance the young girl from the Van Zeeks family as much as possible. I don't believe it. I imagine that in his final hour, Lord Clint Van Zeeks made the obvious choice. He would have thought to himself, this Japanese man here is someone I can trust. I honored my promise to Genshin, of course. However, only a month later, I was summoned back to Japan, and without disclosing the parentage of the child, I couldn't obtain permission to take her with me. Oh, how awful. I was completely at a loss. In the end, I had to ask my great friend. I asked him if he would be a father to her. That being Mr. Sholmes, I presume. Yes. He took one look into my eyes and agreed to it on the spot. Mr. Sholmes. He has a heart of gold. Really, all it can be said that I did for the child was to give her a name. Oh. When I'd come to Britain, I was trying to escape from the grief of losing my darling wife. So it was her name that I gave the little girl. Wife's name, Professor Mikotoba, in other words, the name of my mother. Ayame Mikotoba. No. That's right, Ayame. Or, in English, Iris. Iris. I had no idea. Ow! Mr. Naruhodo, what's wrong? This little thing just pinched me on the behind through my trouser pocket. Hard. Ah, my dear fellows, can you hear me? Mr. Sholmes, is that you? Ow! Yes, we can hear you. You see what excessive tugging can do. Let that be a lesson to you. Mr. Sholmes, we weren't able to thank you properly before, but you were simply marvelous. Your checkmate move was a stroke of genius. Indeed it was, wasn't it? I surpassed myself, I feel. It had become apparent to me that to stop the Lord Chief injustice would require such measures. Bruno, Susie... Oh, Iris... Oh, I'm so pleased. What a wonderful outcome. Her Majesty, Queen Vicky, said she thought my special blend was delicious. Oh, I'm sure she did. After all, no one brews a more delicious tea than you do, Iris. Let's have a party to celebrate. And Mr. Reaper, you simply must come too. What? I'm afraid I couldn't. The Reaper of the Bailey, flustered by a 10-year-old girl who is now his niece, apparently. No, really? Oh, pooh. But I give you my word that I shall present myself at your residence in the near future to express my gratitude. Oh, how lovely. You've promised now. I won't let you forget. Bye for now, then. All right, Iris. Thank you for all your help earlier. Oh, that was nothing. Just come back home soon. Ow! One final pinch goodbye, was it? Oh, I think I ought to be leaving. Lord Van Zeeks, would you care to accompany me? Certainly. Mr. Naruhodo, allow me once again to express my deep gratitude to you. I believe you saved my life. Wait, Lord Van Zeeks. Yes. What are you intending to do now? Well, I just learned I have family available that need to go. Well, clearly I shall have to resign from the prosecutor's office. No. I intend to publicize the full truth of the Professor case. Once that's done, the Van Zeeks family will be ostracized completely from London society. Surely not. So as soon as I am free from my employment, I shall leave the capital. Oh, I see. Don't be a fool. Those the actions of a man once feared as the mighty Reaper of the Bailey? Beg your pardon. For the past 10 years, you've endured that pseudonym and been cast as one of the dark forces yourself. Now that you've finally been freed from that disrepute, our battle is just beginning, surely. Well, I certainly never expected to hear those words from your lips. I waited a very long time to come to London. Now I'm properly here. I intend to learn all that I can. Anyway, goodbye for now, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Kazuma Asogi. It seems as though he's really matured suddenly. He's not the only one who's matured, Mr. Naruhodo. Huh? Well, I think we should make our way back to Baker Street. We must help Iris with tonight's dinner. We must. It was then that I came to an important decision about my future. Oh my god, there's more! I'm home.
About time you got here. We've been waiting ages, Odo. What are you doing with that colourful piece of history? It's a party, isn't it? It's got to get off with a big bang. I mean fireworks, ideally. But when you ain't got fire, smoke's the next best thing, ain't it?
There's a girl on Fresno Street who could help you with that, I think.
Right. I'll remember that.
You don't have to reload that thing every time I speak.
You really must hear this. It's quite the most extraordinary thing.
Who are we talking about?
I assure you, it will defy your expectations. Take down every detail now, Mikotoba.
The world-famous great detective regaling his partner with the tale of his adventure. A sight to behold.
Would you care to hazard a guess? Where do you suppose the fiendish runaway has concealed himself? Would you believe? Inside the trunk I found abandoned in his cabin.
I would believe it, yes.
I say, Mikotoba, I detect not a hint of surprise.
I wonder why that is, Maybe because I was there at the scene as well, Sholmes.
What? You were? Then why the deuce didn't you say so before?
Not quite the sight I was expecting to behold, but still. It's hard not to feel privileged to see it. Hello, Mr. Sholmes, Professor Mikotoba. I'm finally back from the Bailey.
And not a moment too soon. Feast prepared by Iris and Mr. Sato awaits.
I must say, I haven't seen Susato looking so happy in a very long time.
Ah, Runo, there you are. Dinner's on the table, everyone. Please do come and take a seat. Time to fill me boots. Goodness, is that really true, Gina? Yep, I'm losing my copper's clobber and going back to what I know best. It's a dive of life for me. I'm really leaving the police force, but why, Ginny? Well, the boss ain't around no more, so... Oh. And anyway, no matter how hard I try, that Reaper ain't ever gonna accept a diver turned dick, is he? Well, people can change, you know. Ah, yes, that reminds me. I rather thoughtfully offered to relieve the bailiff of this now defunct piece of evidence. Hey?
It's the inspector's pocket watch, and the crown has been reattached. That watch was his pride and joy, a symbol of his great achievements at Scotland Yard. For 10 years without fail, it measured every second of the man's remarkable career.
But now it's stopped.
Someone needs to keep the memory of Inspector Gregson's career alive, by taking on the great responsibility of winding that watch every single day again.
Yes, someone with an equally fierce detective spirit. It's gotta be me. There ain't no one else. Quite right. I mean, after all, the boss was... Well, he was my boss. Yes, Ginny, yes he was.
Can we wrap this up now?
Oh yeah, and I made you a promise and all, didn't I, Iris? That I'd become a proper detective one day and track down your old man. Well... Alright then, it's decided. I'll do it, and I swear I'll find your dad and bring him in kicking and screaming.
I'm not entirely sure that would be appropriate. Yes, I think, Gina, it might be best to, well...
I think I'd like you to forget that promise, Ginny. Hey?
Iris?
Well, obviously I've always wondered about who my real daddy is. Of course I have. I wanted to know where I'm from. I thought it might tell me something about myself. But I've caused such a lot of trouble trying to find out, for so many people. Early, Runo, Professor Miki.
Oh, not at all, my dear. Really, you owe no apology to anyone.
Well, anyway, I've decided to give up on it, because I finally realized my daddy is the greatest in the world. I don't think it matters what his name is or where he's from. Don't you agree?
Ellie. With every word, Iris.
Thank you, Ellie.
I thought I was under the impression she had overheard the conversation via the microphone.
Thank you, Daddy. I think we go to bed.
Yes, Sholmes.
I think that I ought to express my gratitude to you. Oh. For 6 years, you and I solved many a mystery together. And during that time, I remember countless expressions of gratitude for our good services. But a moment ago, I heard the most pleasing expression of gratitude of them all. And I should never have experienced it, were it not for you.
You old softy, Sholmes. But I must confess, it's a weight off my mind to hear you say it.
Well then, I think this calls for a lengthy violin recital, wouldn't you say? Oh, well, the food would go cold, that's the only problem. Maybe next week, Hurley? Are you sure a week is long enough, Iris?
Even amidst the most troubling of cases, even reeling from the most shocking of revelations, returning in the evening to the suite of rooms, there's always warmth and happiness to be had. The home of the world's greatest detective, and my home too, with my greatest family.
Oh my god, there's more! It's gonna be like a 2-hour-long episode.
This attic room has been my home and office for almost a year now. I've certainly had some unforgettable experiences whilst I've lived here. But I think now the time has come. Time to bid this place farewell.
Naruhodo.
Sorry, wrong one. Oh, Professor. Are you alone? I didn't hear any sound from Susato's room.
Yes, Susato-san went out after dinner. She took a carriage. Something about an important matter she needed to take care of.
Ah, I see. I wanted to thank you for what you did earlier.
Oh?
With Iris, I mean, when the subject of her father came up.
Lord Clint Van Zieks.
I made up my mind many years ago never to tell her who her real father was. It's what was agreed with Genshin, after all.
Lord Clint Van Zieks' final wishes before he died, you mean?
Yes. I've had to take some rather drastic steps at times to protect that secret, you know. Calling Susato back to Japan 6 months ago, for example.
That's why?
When I read Soseki-san's report about his final days in London, my heart nearly stopped. You'd stumbled across the crux of that terrible case, the dog's collar. A description of the Baskerville insignia left me in no doubt. Baskerville. If you'd decided to investigate that insignia, sooner or later you'd have made the connection to the Van Zieks, and to make matters worse, Susato knew of the unpublished story as well. The story that Iris had written based on my notes from the time.
Yes, the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Exactly. It was a work of fiction, but based on the grim reality of a huge beast of a dog being used as a murder weapon. A dog with the Baskerville family emblem around its neck. Armed with those two clues, I feared you and Susato might arrive at the truth. So I invented that story about having collapsed to justify her leaving London and returning to Japan at once. All in aid of halting an investigation you and she might have been contemplating.
I see. Something I've never understood is why Susato-san came across that manuscript in Japan, though. You know, Iris's The Hound of the Baskerville story, I mean.
Sholmes sent it to me. That was before Susato left Japan. He was very troubled about what should be done about it, you see. I'd read it and carelessly left it on my desk, which is where Susato came across it, of course. It was the only case Sholmes and I ever pursued that I didn't record in meticulous detail. I was stunned when I discovered that young Iris had pieced together so much of it from my paltry notes. Sholmes and I discussed the matter and decided that we couldn't allow the story's publication. At that point, I returned the manuscript by post to Sholmes for safekeeping. So you did all that to stop Iris from finding out the truth about her father? That's right, because Sholmes had told me how astute she'd become. However, having witnessed events in court today, I must say my opinion has somewhat shifted. Oh? I think at some point in the future, the time will come for Iris to know the truth. And when it does, well, I believe it will be for the best. I think so too. Actually, Professor, I wanted to talk to you about something too. Judging from that expression, I'd say you've come to a decision, have you? Yes, I have. I will be returning with you to Japan. Are you quite sure? I'm really only here as a substitute for Kazuma, but he's here in Britain now, as originally intended. Locum student Naruhodo doesn't really have a right to stay, I think. I see. Looking back now, when I first arrived here in February, becoming a lawyer just seemed to be the way things turned out. With Kazuma, Susato-san, and Mr. Sholmes all gently pushing me in that direction. I spent the best part of a year immersed in this world, but always aware of a seed of doubt inside of me. Till today. Standing in that courtroom earlier, all doubts vanished from my mind. I was totally focused. I was sure of my belief in my client, and I was sure I could see the trial through. And at the end of it, I finally realized no one else chose this path for me. I chose it myself. Path of a defense lawyer, eh? Yes, that's what I am now. That's what I'll be going back with you to Japan as. And that's the path I'll be following for the rest of my life. Well, it sounds like you've made quite a resolution there. I have. Very well then. I must say, it's extremely welcome news. I shall make arrangements for your return first thing tomorrow, but I don't imagine we'll depart for a few days. Now with the symposium having been cancelled now, it's a shame. Never mind. I'm sure there'll be other opportunities in the future. Well then, I'll bid you good night. Susato-san? I just wanted to let you know I'm back. Did you, hear what your father and I were discussing? I'm sorry I did, yes. I couldn't help but... Oh, how much did you hear? Well, from the part about Iris's real father, I think. In other words, from the beginning. So you've made up your mind. You'll return to Japan and continue working as a defense lawyer. Yes, I'm sorry. I really should have consulted you about it. I did want to earlier this evening, actually, but you'd already gone out. Oh no, that's quite all right. I already knew that it's what you'd decide. I already knew that it's what you'd decide, Naruhodo-san. You did? Susato-san. Yes? I suppose this means it has to be farewell soon. I suppose. He'll be a great help to Kazuma going forward. I mean, I know he's a brilliant lawyer, but he's new to the British courtroom. He'll certainly benefit greatly having a brilliant judicial assistant at his side. Now he's got Lord Van Zeek, so I'll do my very best. I wish I could say it, but I just can't. I can't ask her to come with me. After all, she was always supposed to be coming to Britain as Kazuma's assistant. It's growing late. We should both try to get some sleep. I'm sure you must be exhausted after today. Oh, yes, you're right. Before I retire, let me just say one more time. You really were quite splendid in court today. So if you ask me, anyone who thinks of you as a substitute or a locum should be ashamed of themselves. Sato-san. Thank you. Oh my god. Holy crap, I can't believe this day's finally come. Oh, really leaving then, Runo? I'm afraid so, Iris. Thank you so much for everything. I don't know what I'd do without your wonderful cooking and delicious tea. Oh, I wish you weren't going. But you have to come back and visit. Say you will. Of course, I promise. Well, it was a very brief reunion, but it was a pleasure to pursue a case with you again after so long. For a while, at least, it felt like old times. Yes, I suppose, on reflection, there's something to be said for it. Having a little fun once in a while. I'll just go and say goodbye to the professor as well, I think. All right, Iris, you do that.
Susato-san.
I've just checked, Naruhodo-san. Your luggage is already on board. Such a beautiful morning. Perfect for embarking on a journey, isn't it?
Before I set off, I'd just like to say how thankful I am for everything you've done for me. And give my warmest regards to Kazuma, please.
Actually, I think you ought to give him your regards in person, don't you?
Sorry?
Ryunosuke.
Kazuma! What are you doing here?
Do you really think I'd miss my best friend's departure?
Thanks. To be honest, I'd been looking forward to our wild time tearing up the streets of Her Majesty's capital, but...
Well, we'll have to save that for another time. Personally, I'm looking forward to facing you in court again.
Me too. But, we're both defense lawyers, so,
I'm going to become a prosecutor. I'll stay in Lord Van Zeek's tutelage for the time being, but before long, I intend to be just as formidable as the Reaper himself.
Oh, I see.
Actually, Ryunosuke, I have a favor to ask.
Name it.
I'd like you to take care of this for me for a while.
Karuma? Why?
Because I've seen it now. I've seen what's inside me, the demon that reared its ugly head that day. It was only for the briefest of moments. The last time I came face to face with that inspector. But it was unmistakable. I wanted to kill him. I've always known there are demons that live inside people. And now I know there is one in me. The fact that it very nearly consumed me is something I'll carry with me until the end of my days. While I devote my life to fighting those whose demons have got the better of them. As a prosecutor.
So, that's what you've resolved to do, is it?
Until I'm ready to face the demon within me. To slay it once and for all. I leave this in your care. If you'll take it.
Of course I will. I'll keep it by my side. Always. Until we meet again, then. You have your path to follow, and I have mine.
Naruhodo-san? The path you're going to follow from now on, I wonder if I might follow it at your side, and unless I'd be a burden.
What? I mean, I would very much like you to come with me. But aren't you...
You're so predictable, Ryunosuke.
I am?
Honestly, you never change at all. But that's what I like about you.
You mean you knew about this?
It was the evening after Lord Van Zeek's trial came to an end. She came to see me at the prosecutor's office.
Really? Or when I had that conversation with Professor Mikotoba.
So, you'd go with Ryunosuke back to Japan?
Yes. I know it's unfair of me to follow my own interests like this.
Coming here especially to tell me. You're a stickler for etiquette, aren't you? Well, what are his feelings?
We've never discussed it, of course, and Naruhodo-san has made no such suggestion. I worry that perhaps I'd be a burden to him.
He's just as much of a stickler for etiquette as you are. He'd never say anything before he was asked. But I'd feel happy knowing you were with him. Look out for him on my behalf, will you?
Of course.
Susato-san.
What do you think, Naruhodo-san?
With you by my side, no trial would seem too daunting. So if you're willing, I'd be honored if you'd come with me. Together we can take on the world.
I'm terribly incompetent, but if you'll have me, I'd be delighted.
Oh, no, not at all. If anyone's terribly incompetent, it's me.
Ah! What's wrong?
Your luggage, Susato-san. There's no time. The ship's going to set sail any minute now.
It's all right. There's no need to worry. As it happens, my luggage is already on board too.
It is?
Your fine judicial assistant has everything in hand as always, I see.
Bruno! Your ship's about to leave!
Time to go then. Look after yourself, Ryunosuke.
Kazuma, draw your sword. One day, when our paths cross, once more, we'll fight a duel of words across the courtroom. A day I eagerly await, as a lawyer.
I've been waiting to hear you say that, partner.
Don't forget me then, Kazuma.
As if I could. Ryunosuke.
And Mr. Sholmes, thank you so much. I'm very much indebted to you.
Indeed, Mr. Naruhodo. I believe you are.
I'll never forget all you've done for me during my time in London.
Quite. I should like to think you will remember your debt of gratitude. Especially when I visit you in your country. What? The truth is, although many are ignorant of the fact, the world is far smaller than most folk realize.
Well, I'd be delighted if you came to Japan one day.
Oh yes, would welcome you with open arms, Mr. Sholmes. Oh, that sounds wonderful! I can't wait!
In that case, let us conclude that this is to be merely a brief parting, my dear fellows.
And that brings us to the end of my adventures in Great Britain. A peculiar twist of fate brought me halfway around the world those many months ago. But that was just the start of my journey. Who knows where fate will lead me next? Still, I'm confident this won't be my last meeting with the friends I've made in London. And when we're together again, no doubt the first words I'll hear will be,
Come, the game is afoot.
The ship, with our friends from the east, sailed steadily towards the distant horizon. But Sholmes's face was alight with joy. The times may change, but a steadfast friendship will remain true, Wilson. We have but to gently close our eyes, and we are with our companions once more.
So I do just that. And when I do, I can hear his strong, familiar voice ring out.
objection!
Until we meet again, Runo.
Holy crap, finally. There was almost an hour's worth of after-game. Oh no, please. I've been thoroughly inundated with inquiries about my remote cinematograph. But I'm no purveyor of electrical goods. What? It is said an absence from London is an order of sojourn to distant climes, the Empire of Japan, perhaps. I understand that wardrobe class incurs no charge whatsoever. I thought I was done with the voice work. Well, I mean, if anything, good God. This is the most I've ever practiced my very poor British accent. I gave a little more note to Hurley the other day. It just said, "Thank you for everything, Daddy." But it made Hurley cry. And I gave him some lotion I'd invented as well to dye his hair red safely. But he said that might make him cry too, so he'd rather not use it. Amongst the myriad other voices that I cannot do. Though, just between us, some of them are rather fun to attempt. Those days when I was known as the Reaper, I felt your presence at my side. Once, unable to bear the burden of that grim pseudonym, I even retired from the courtroom. That's where I got this crazy accent from. Despite everything, I still wear your prosecutor's badge with pride. The darkness that once beset me is no more, as you too are no more. In other words, in the words of a young foreign friend of mine, I must stride forward toward a brighter future. This is incredible, how many postscripts there are in this. Thank God, it doesn't end. The boss left a note for me, you know.
I can read every letter now, A to Z, the whole lot. It's cleared a load of stuff up. The boss was trying to protect me, see? And that's exactly what me and Chief Inspector Toby here are gonna do, keeping doing for Londoners. I wish I could have said how grateful I was before he, you know. Man, is this gonna be the whole credits? How many characters are there? You're dead, you don't get to say nothing. Gina, the truth is, I'm not the upstanding fellow you think I am. You might be a diver at art, but it's a good art. You've reminded me I need to be true to myself. Got one more job to take care of before it's time to land in town for the foreseeable. And then, I've got to complete your education in the art of detection, or la Gregson, as they say. Your Excellency, this man is accused of illegal entry into the office of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Objection. Now bleak up a statement of a rule. The Minister has been detained in Britain now anyway. How is this cattish counsel for the defence? Really, my friends decided I was in British courtroom all the time and doing a wonderful job, and I don't remember your accent, and there you are, you son of a bitch. Perhaps I should have engaged the services of a regular legal team. I still feel like there were a lot of loose ends from the first story. Like, I feel like the tie-in to the whole exchange of information and secrets and all that stuff. Mama, is it true about Japanese people? Are they experts at filleting corpses? Yes, they are. Fish corpses on the whole. I'd like to hone my own filleting skills. You don't mind, do you, Mama? Yes, I do. The corpse yet, am I? No. And I'm glad. Creepy. It's very hard to pin her down, too, because, like, she's a doctor, but she acts like she's 12? I mean... The cast of characters, oh my god, the cast of characters in this game. Didn't you go home yet? I arrived in Great Britain on the invitation of my dear old university friend. He sent me a very nice letter. Great. What have I done? I was so excited I'd picked this splendid hotel, and now I can't afford the bill. Oh, Barrick, come rescue me again. Now, you know, the fact that they had voiced parts of the game and couldn't be bothered to actually spend... This is a Capcom game. They got the money. They couldn't fully voice the game. That bothers me a little bit. Not least because I had to put all the work into it myself. When I made the waxwork impression of the killer in the cemetery, I realized what had happened. But even when you stand at the highest court in the land, I could never speak of it. Yes. The Lord Chief Justice and I had struck a bargain. You'll see. A faithful reproduction of the visage. There is nothing with two spells would not do. Also, after they revealed his face, why was it never shown again in scenes that he was in via recollection? You know, like, they had to model the characters. They would have had the 3D model available. Everyone calls me gossip. I feel jaunty tidbits. Hey, everyone calls me Peppino, as elder spaghetti. And I'm a little more red-headed. Everyone, they call me... No, I cannot do it. This is ridiculous. Oh, Daly, how charming. You've made lots of new friends here, I see. Yes, and when we're released, we're all going to strike it rich together. As the Red-Headed League. I do like the animation, though. I think it was a really nice touch. I mean, I really liked just the flat animation when I was accepted to the Forest 32. I knew exactly what path I had to take, however it might have ended. I knew I wanted you there to see it.
I'd ended up in the dock. There's no one I would have rather had defending me. But now, thanks to you, there's a new path I want to take. Sure, we'll meet again in the courtroom, my friend. Anticipating that they were going to make a sequel, and I don't believe they did. I believe these are the two in this branch, this spin-off. But yeah, the Phoenix Wright games, with their flat 2D animation, are nice, but the transition to 3D works very well. I've made some tea, Naruhodo-san. It's important you rest while you can. Once we arrive in Japan, you should be busy establishing your new office. I'm so delighted to accompany you. After all, your talents have been recognized by a great detective. Because you really are the greatest of lawyers. Great ace attorney, some might say. And even though in the West, the character's name is Phoenix Wright, in Japan, he is named Naruhodo, and is canonically the descendant of this guy, so... And the Daruma dolls filled in. Wish fulfilled. The clothing extras option, interesting but entirely out of place, especially for Sholmes. Like, you know, the switch over to, like, the, I guess, Western style clothing, such as it is suitable, you know, because, like, the characters finally decide to live there. There's more credits, there's always more for this. There's postscript after postscript. We're now in, like, PPP, PPPS. But, yeah, like, I don't know. I was honestly expecting them to go back to Japan and, you know, Sholmes then wearing his awkwardness. It just doesn't, it really is, I don't know. The whole thing is weird anyway, but, you know, the lady with the living swan on her head, for crying out loud. I'm not trying to say they at any point took the game seriously or anything, but it's just, I don't know. Like, when would you want the characters to be in their new costumes when they don't actually fit or suit them? Especially since they didn't change the animations. Like, some of the animations seemed like it did. You know, some of the things seemed like they were there and reacted on the characters that, you know, normally wouldn't have been there. Obviously, like the mouse on Naruhodo's shoulder, but the fact that he kept pushing up a non-existent armband was kind of annoying. Like, why not just put the armband on the new character, you know? If you're not going to be bothered changing the motion of the character, just give him that little added bit to his outfit. And this one, I don't believe, had the extra little addendum stories like the first game did. To sort of fill in the story, but like, Jesus Christ, you wouldn't need it. There is plenty of story here. And honestly, oh my god, I was not expecting it. I did not think this series was going to be nearly as long as it turned out to be. And, you know, when you consider it, right, like, it's almost 100 episodes, I guess. But when you consider most of them averaged about an hour, you know, 50 minutes at least is probably what it all averages out to. Like, that's a crap load of hours for a game. It would have obviously been faster had I just been reading it, you know, myself and not trying to voice everything and all that, but that's a long time to commit to a game. And part of me feels like I should have stopped after the first one and just kind of done a space in between Ace Attorney 1 and 2. But at the same time, I don't think I would have returned, since I kind of have a bad habit of that, but, you know. I know this series has not been the most popular. In fact, it has recently been some of my lowest view counts on new videos in quite a while. So, I guess, for those of you that did actually stick around and follow along and actually care about the story, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed my struggle at voice work, because I honestly have never attempted that many British accents ever. Ever. And then whatever Lord Van Zeeks comically became because I didn't understand what his first seat. Like, if they had established character voices at the very beginning in the cutscene, then that wouldn't have been an issue. Why is it everyone talked at the end of the game when it's like, oh, that's what they sounded like? Although some of the characters I feel like I got pretty close. Just intuitively. Are we done? Oh my god, you're not gonna keep walking. What? Back to the courtroom in Japan. Finally. For crying out loud. Go on. God, it has a really bad habit of just leaving things on the screen there. Oh, that's a nice one. Okay. God. I gotta admit, some of the puzzles, little bit obscure. You know, the problem with the game going on is for long as it has been, and for me, having stretched this out over more than 3 months now, God, I don't even remember when the first one started, I couldn't remember all the details of the story and the plot and, you know, relevant things that I kept thinking were a part of this and that and the other thing. It's a very difficult game, I think, to, without taking notes, and I can't remember if I did in the Phoenix Wright series or not, but without having some remembrance, I think it'd be very hard to find some of the very loose details. Although in the final puzzle there, they were dropping some very heavy clues, like, you know, match the word scarlet with, oh, this thing also says scarlet, you know. Gives you a little bit of a hint there, but it kind of annoyed me that the fact that there was a dialogue history that didn't go all the way back, especially to the beginning of the episode, you know, the game episode, not the videos that I've been doing. Or the checkpoints, at least. At the very least, the checkpoints. Keeping all that dialogue so I could go back. You know, I mean, that would have been helpful. You know, when you're at the start of a trial and you're trying to remember what they said at the beginning of the trial, but you've gone so deep into it now that the things they said have been deleted. I don't know. I think I kind of felt that way about Phoenix Wright as well. And honestly, when I first started playing this, I thought that I would do that. I actually considered doing all of the Ace Attorney games, because I think they are available now on PC. But I'm having second thoughts about that. I would like to play Phoenix Wright again, just because I remember really enjoying them, but I don't think I am going to do that as a Let's Play, or play any of the other games as a Let's Play. Mostly just because they are incredibly long, and as I said, not a lot of people seem to be terribly interested in these kinds of games, at least not on my channel. So, you know, maybe some other time in some other form or whatever, but probably just on my own. But anyway, that has been the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next Let's Play.